Okay, today we're going to talk about orgone, and we're going to get a little bit into the history and the science of it. I'm going to start right off by letting you know that orgone is a cosmic, it's a universal energy that is attracted to itself, meaning that if this thumb was an orgone energy, and my hand on this hand would be orgone also, this bigger sized orgone would attract the smaller one. So if I had a small orgone device in my house, and then I had a pyramid, which is a bigger orgone device, the energy from the small orgone device will be attracted to the big one. It's sexual in nature. It connects like this. It comes together and then spirals. So that's sexual energy. Now, Wilhelm Reich, who was studying the human body, and the reason why he studied the human body was because that uh, as a child, he fell in love with his mother. He loved his mother, but he also fell in love with his mother. And the reason for that was that his father was very abusive. And being that his father was very abusive, his mother took on a lover. So when the father went to work, she would have her lover come in, and she would leave the room door open so that Wilhelm Reich would look in as a child and watch the whole sexual act. Uh, but the mother also noticed that he was standing there watching. So when the lover left, he would come and look and stand in the doorway, and his mother would tell him to come in, and she would lay down naked after she had sex with her lover, and lay with him on her breasts, and he fell in love with her through her breasts. Which is a very nurturing thing. His research started with breasts. He said that that was the most powerful part of a female for men, is the nurturing aspect of the breast. Later on, of course, his father found out about the mother, and banished and made her live in like a shack, and she froze to death, and she died, and he began to hate his father. He hates men, like many of us today. Dislike our parents for some reason or another. Father wasn't there or mother wasn't there, whatever. Same thing. So he loved his mother, and he was in love with his mother. And he was studied, as I said before, Orgon is actually ancient. It goes all the way back to Egypt and probably earlier. It's a cosmic universal thing. The universe is Orgon, meaning organic, orgasmic, organs, like organs in the body. When you eat a piece of fruit, you're eating organic or orgon fruit. It has positive or POR or orgon in it. It has nothing to do with the genetic alteration. It could still have genetic alteration and be orgon. Because when I make an orgon device, it's made of fiberglass, crystals, steel wool, and various other types of metal like copper, steel, zinc. It has to have zinc, and various other hematite, meteorite, and so on and so on. So many of these minerals, many of these crystals, and including the resin, is a combination of things in nature to produce something
Good
on
morning,
the
ladies
planet.
and gentlemen. May I have your attention, please?
So Wilhelm now orgon. So orgon also actually produces negative ions. Negative ions is very good for lowering blood pressure, and healing sicknesses because it allows the body to relax. What happens with orgon in sexuality, which was one of the discoveries of Wilhelm Reich, was that sexual energy gets stored up in the body based on the thoughts. Your thoughts, the traumas that take place in your life, collect up in your body, and the negativity of it clogs up the orgasmic release. So anyone having a problem with orgasms, anybody having problems not only with just orgasms, but like any kind of problems, is stagnated, stored up energy that has to have that orgasmic release, which takes place when a bombardment of negative ions, which you could get at night near seawater. So you can get the sea salt at night. You get the sea salt and the negative ions, whereas the sea salt is good in itself even during the day. If you're swimming in sea salt, it opens up the pores and helps to release toxins out of the body. It helps you to relax. But during the day you produce more positive ions, which is more stressful, more energetic, um, more tightening of the of the valves in the body that help to pump the blood and organ through the system. But at night you get the negative ions, which help to open up and release everything. And that's also when melanin, of course, we understand that melanin kicks in somewhere around, I believe, 2 in the morning, or between 10 and 2 in the morning, somewhere around there. So it's attracted to itself. So when it connects, it forms a spiral that, in the form of tornadoes. Hurricanes, tornadoes is all dealing with orgon. That's all orgon. It's a natural phenomenon. When these energies connect up, they begin to swirl together and they become one. And that's what sex is. When two people get together, they become one powerful energy. You become a fucking hurricane or a tornado. That is the power of the orgasmic release. That is what you connect to. That is what you connect to with the right. If you program yourself to have the certain thoughts at the point of orgasm, and you will produce that particular thing in physical reality. So Wilhelm Reich was actually killed by the FDA in 1957 when he was thrown in jail, and the Nazis took all of his technology and took it to certain parts of America, like Camp David, where Hitler lived to 1984, or Antarctica. The Nazis killed him, took all of it burned all his books that he had written on the Orgon accumulator, but they took all of his technology to Montauk and various other places. The Nazis took that stuff and upgraded it. And even in Israel today, they have what is known as an Orgon cannon, where where they use it to produce a type of winter type weather in that region. Um, Farmers also use orgon devices to keep the chemtrails off of off of the food or the fruits and vegetables and whatever is growing on their farmland. So that's very, very, very interesting. Self organ devices, the organ devices that I designed myself. I researched Wilhelm Reich's work and other works of people who dealt with organ and the ancient technology of organ, going all the way back to Egypt, and discovered that there are other techniques that you could use. You could use the layering system, the layering system is that you layer different elements to produce a certain energy, meaning that if I make a pyramid, the first layer might be crystals, the next layer might be steel wool, the next layer might be crystals, the next layer might be steel wool. That's the technique that Wilhelm Reich used to produce this particular orgon energy, but he didn't use crystals. The crystals actually clean out the orgon that's being pulled in. Now, he didn't use crystals, but it still worked when it was used in an accumulator, meaning a box. You sit in the box, and it healed that way. But I later discovered that crystals actually even cleanse out the negativity and the dangers that are all around you in your cell phones, because a lot of the technology wasn't, they didn't have a lot of the technology at the time as far as cell phones, nuclear plants, and all this kind of stuff. So it wasn't as much DOR in the atmosphere in your living square. So your Orgon accumulator was perfect for that particular time period. But as time moved on and certain technologies were produced on a heavier level, such as cell phone towers, cordless phones, because your cordless phone is a miniature cell phone tower. So what Orgon does, it destroys, it takes all those negative rays, the ELF, the demonic entities, everything that's negative in electronic spectrum and in the magnetic spectrum and in the etheric spectrum, because you can't see Orgon unless it's at the Aurora Borealis, which is the auric field. So your auric field is basically astral. So it also deals with the astral level of the entity of destroying the negative energies. So the orgon pulls it in. Like I said, once you make that orgon, it pulls in orgon from everywhere. It pulls it in, and when it pulls it in, it cleanses it through the crystals and shoots it up forth, and now you have the POR, which is the positive ions that you could actually get now during the day by having these particular devices. In these devices, I use, and they're also good for blocking harp waves. Like I said, cell phone, home phones, which are cordless, home phones, computers, everything. And orgone is basically also synonymous in a magnetic level. It's magnetic because it attracts. So I also use magnets in the form of hematite, because when you use the sphere, a magnetic sphere, hematite, anything magnetic has to have iron in it. And iron is one of the elements that Wilhelm Reich used. And when you put this iron with these particular materials I had mentioned, like crystals, uh, resin, and steel wool or copper or whatever, when you put those together, it produces this particular orgone energy. So, but now we added the hematite, which is grounding force, a very powerful grounding force, and crystals. And these crystals, and not only crystals, but the magnetic element of the hematite, which is the iron. We also use zinc, which is galvanized iron, because the galvanization of the iron actually helps the orgone to bounce off and shoot out and spark out. Like, you ever seen one of those sparklers when you light a sparkler and they just fizz everywhere, and it shoots out like that once you add the zinc. So it blocks the radiation that's coming from your smoke detectors, because your smoke detectors are heavily bombard radiation, very deadly in your house. They went around. We lived for centuries without a goddamn smoke alarm in our house. All of a sudden, and you still have the same amount of fucking fires, the same fires and everything like that. They just got these devices in your house slowly killing you. Get the smoke alarm out of your house. Yeah, so some of the crystals that I use in the devices that I make are a amethyst, citron. Amethyst, of course, we know is extremely good cleanser. It's violet, and not only the color violet, but the amethyst is antiseptic. It's antiseptic, among other properties that you could use it for. It's protection. Your crown chakra, as I said before, is violet. It protects you from receiving negative or unwanted thoughts. You have the option of blocking it based on the crown chakra being violet, which is the synonymous with the amethyst. Of course, we know that citron is the orangish, brownish color, which is dealing with grounding, truth, and so forth. We'll talk a little bit later on about the stones and their addition to the orgone based on the type of stone you use. I also make personal orgones. If you know about stones and you want a particular type of energy to come out, organic energy to come out of your orgone device, you can also let me know what type of device you want and what type of stones you want. Citron is really just a cooked amethyst. Really, you cook an amethyst and it turns into citron. So it's heated amethyst. So now we're dealing with the sacral plexus, and we're dealing with truth. We're dealing with, it does the same thing the amethyst does in a different way. So to bring a different energy. So I'll have a whole readout on that, what it does in the orgone as you use these different crystals. We'll talk a little bit also here. Quartz, of course, we know is clarity, and quartz basically cleanses out everything negative. That's what it means. Clear out, cleaning. You see, whereas the amethyst is a little different, because the amethyst is more of a protection and antiseptic. So I use actually both, including the citron, in the pyramids. For those of you who get the pyramids special orders, I use stones like celestiotite. Celestiotite will heighten the spiritual energy of the orgone. It's more spiritual type of, or angelic, as we should say. Angels are just your other selves that give you information that help protect yourself in this physical reality. And we call them guardian angels. That's only your higher self. That's dealing with the celestiotite. So now we're talking about organic energy, and we're dealing with the celestial type energy. And the celestial type orgons are much more expensive, because celestial type is expensive. Not hard to get, but it's just very expensive. As I said before, we also use hematite. We use turquoise, because turquoise is good for the dreams, the memory, the peace, the harmony, and various other things based on the type of turquoise, because you have different types of turquoise from Africa, from South America and so on and so on. So
Petrified wood.
yes, you're right. We could use petrified wood. Petrified wood is similar to has the same effect, but more grounding in it as amber. We also use amber. Just about any stone or any material you could think of could be used in an organ to project out that particular energy. So if you want a particular organ made, you could specify what you want as in your device, and we produce those particular devices. It's so funny because in the Voodoo Gnostic, Michael Berdiak's, he has a whole article on organ called the Org 8 Papers. Okay, so organ, Michael Berdiak's, when he wrote this article on organ, he was saying that he is saying that organ is one of the most powerful magics on the planet, and I could believe that because everything is really thought, and thought is organic. Thought is organic, so you could shoot forth POR or DOR. You could send a negative DOR energy to someone, or you could send a POR, a positive organic radiation, to a person. You can heal a person with your hands. Organ emits from your hands. When you rub your hands together, you produce what's known as heat, or even better yet, static electricity, which is a misnomer because it's magnetic. So just by rubbing your hands or rubbing someone, constantly rubbing that person, maybe they have an illness in that part of the body, by rubbing it, you're emitting POR, positive organ radiation, into the other person. And that's where you get the science in the Bible where Jesus laid hands on people. When you see a preacher, they go up and they put hands on people. He has to emit POR. That means that adrenaline, that yes, that hallelujah, that joyful feeling comes through his body in the form of POR, positive organ radiation, and heals that person. Those are known as faith healers. They understand the science of, most of the high-ranking ones understand the science of POR or organ. They don't know it's organ. They may not know it's organ or whatever, but they understand the science of that type of healing and the static electricity which runs through your body. Go get a dress. Women, you wear dresses. Get a certain type of dress. You put it on, or your clothes, and it clings to your body. That's static electricity. That's POR. That's positive organ radiation. So, but we go get some sprays and stuff to get that shit out, right? Spray that. Yeah, we don't want no POR on us. But it's very interesting also that hospitals. Now, I recommend for a sick person to go to the hospital. Now, that's some crazy shit. We done said, we know how fucked up the doctors are. We know all that stuff about how fucked up hospital. But I'm not saying go see a doctor. Go sit in the waiting room. Why? Because the whole hospitals, or the hospital system, was designed by people who dealt with Wilhelm Reich and other scientists that knew that it's a certain way to set up a hospital, the color scheme, the airflow, and the space, and all of that. If you go sit in a doctor's office, you start to feel healed waiting for the motherfucker, and then when you go see him, you get sick or you get fucked up or whatever. But just go sit down. If you don't feel well, go walk into a hospital and sit in the emergency room or the waiting room, and it's filled with POR, because that's where sick people go, and they sit there. In the waiting room is where the POR is. The color schemes, as I said, and the air that's coming through there. If you ever sat in a waiting room of a doctor's office, you know that your ass was nodding out. You was very comfortable. You even got bored at times, but you wasn't uncomfortable. You weren't feeling negative. You weren't feeling edgy. You felt calm. That's POR. So the hospitals were all designed after the Wilhelm Reich techniques of organ accumulators. So a hospital room, not the doctors, that's a whole other thing. The room itself is an organ accumulator, all right? There is, out in the Midwest, where I think Hitler owns most of the land, in Colorado. Colorado is known as the organ center of the United States. That's where the most purest organ, they don't even spray Colorado. They may have recently started, but out of all the spraying they did all over the world, all over the United States, Colorado was basically left alone. So Colorado has the purest form of positive orgone radiation. So if you're looking to take a vacation for healing and for a long period of time, Colorado would be the place to go. Okay, and I think I covered pretty much everything here. Again, the based on the elements that we use in the orgons, the healing properties for like copper for affinity with the blood, turquoise, whereas actually copper and turquoise is very similar because when I think it is a copper is similar to has an affinity with copper has affinity with turquoise because it turns into turquoise, you see,
Okay.
and that copper is also in your blood.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why when we talk about memory
Mm-hmm.
and genetics and all these things dealing with the stones, because you have a connection to them based on your blood and the organ in the body
That's why the Statue of Liberty is now green because of the
because of the copper element. Yeah,
exactly
yeah. That's why copper.
and
Now
the
it's
and the
the difference
turquoise.
between silver. Silver doesn't turn copper. I mean, turn turquoise. Only copper does.
Mm-hmm.
That's why copper is one of the most powerful elements dealing with the human body because of that, because of
Mm-hmm.
that genetic memory of the Aztecs and the
Mm-hmm.
Mayans and so forth. They used copper because what they were dealing with was when copper ages, it turns turquoise. You see, so
Mm.
I have a copper wedding band on. This copper wedding band, years from now, if I leave it alone, it will turn into like a turquoise color. So when we talk about the blood, when we talk about the blood, we're talking about, and we talk about the blood synonymous with copper, and then turquoise. The turquoise is dealing with the memory. The age is dealing with the age of the
Mm-hmm.
copper. You see.
Can I get a shot of your bracelet because
Oh
that
yeah,
is
this is a very very interesting bracelet for healing, which I don't really need right now, and it's not really made to wear for style. But I broke my own rule, and I wore it for style because I don't really need the healing power of it. But what it also does is it's an attraction power also of other of finances of whatever. I'm running tests on that now, but I wore it today for because of the way it looks. You get a close up of that. This is the beads on here are magnetic copper. Magnetic copper, which is copper is not magnetic because it doesn't have iron in it. So, but these are special beads which are magnetic copper, which is very hard to find and probably very hard to magnetize. And also with this, we have small African turquoise, which is green. The African turquoise is green. So, of course, we have turquoise from all over different parts of the planet. We have from um, South America, as I said before, Africa, America itself. You have it like in the Midwest. They have different types of copper, and copper comes in. Turquoise comes in white, green,
blue.
and of course turquoise itself, which is a bluish color. I think you could even get them in an
Orange.
orangish color. Yeah,
Yes.
I think they even. I'm not sure if they dye those, but they look more. They probably were white turquoise and they
Mm-hmm.
dyed them, but they may be natural.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen or read anything about them being natural though. So maybe someone can look that up. And so to close it out with the Orgone, so that for people who bought one and want to know more about it, those are the things we add into it. Those are the things, and you can look up each and every one of those elements to see which each and one does, crystals, quartz, and so forth, and hematite, and look at the combination of that. And then you could read about Orgone yourself in my latest book called The Orgone Papers and get a good history and background of how Orgone is used. It's everywhere, and it's used in every way, along with color combinations and thoughts and so forth. Again, Orgone pulls in the negative energy, attracts it. It was discovered through the Orgone accumulator. Wilhelm Reich brought it to light. The Nazis killed him, took that information, and now use it against you by creating DOR clouds. Anytime you see a gray cloud, it's cloudy out and looks muggy and it's nasty, that's DOR. Big cities are magnets for demonic entities, which are what we call DOR, deadly orgone radiation, and it permeates the whole city. Because the more people are there, the more negative thoughts are there, the more negative entities are attracted to it, the more DOR is attracted to it. It's all around you. So if you don't have one in your house, or around you, some kind of positive orgone radiation, because we probably need it more than any other race right now, because everything is heaped up on us, in from every position, everywhere, every race on the planet dislikes you because of who you